Hi there, Damien here, public speaking and performance coach, bringing you public speaking tips, helping you overcome any public speaking anxiety or nerves that you may have before a speech or a presentation. In recent videos, I've been speaking a lot about the inner critic, which is that critical voice that arises when we've been asked to speak or perform in public. And what I want to talk about today is another way that we can address this inner critic. Now, this inner critic is a topic that we will be speaking about a lot, simply because it really is fundamental to understanding public speaking fear and how we can overcome it. When we are dealing with the inner critic, one of the most useful ways to think of it is as a scared child. The inner critic inside us isn't just being overly negative for no reason. There is a part of us that genuinely feels terrified, and the inner critic is trying to protect us. So in its logic, it's thinking, well, maybe if I can scare the person out of going through with the speech or the presentation, then they won't do it. Maybe if I can, through this voice in the head that goes round and round, if I can tell them how bad it's going to be and how wrong it's going to go, they won't go through with it. As you can see, the inner critic is trying to protect you and trying to protect itself with negative thoughts. But of course, this does not work. This is completely irrational. We cannot go through life, no matter how hard we try, completely avoiding public speaking or performing events. They come up in every aspect of life, whether that's a job interview, a presentation for a college course, a speech at a wedding, or just being asked to give a talk on something. So one of the things and the reasons it's important to think of the inner critic as a scared child is because that will give us an idea on how to address the inner critic. So rule number 1 should be that we should never address the inner critic harshly. Now, it can be tempting when the inner critic, this voice inside us, says, oh, you're going to mess up with this speech and your presentation's going to go wrong, your boss is not going to like it. It is easy for us to immediately just say, oh, shut up to that voice, be quiet, stop talking, go away, you're always making things worse. However, that in essence is like criticizing a scared child. That will only make the child inside of us feel more anxious and afraid, and that voice will get louder and louder. Essentially, what we are doing is we are creating an additional level of suffering in the situation. We have our first level of suffering or fear, which is the presentation or speech itself. And then we have our second layer of suffering or fear, which is the negative criticism that we are throwing at ourselves in the form of the inner child or the inner critic. So, instead, what we're going to do is address the inner critic positively and with compassion. When that voice arises as negative, we're going to say things, instead of go away, you're such a nuisance, you cause so many problems in my life. We're going to say, okay, I understand that you feel that way. The voice might say, you're going to mess up that presentation. There's no way that you can do that and be successful. And we're just going to simply respond to the inner critic with words such as, I hear you. I hear that that's your point of view. I hear that you feel anxious. It's almost just having a dialogue with ourselves that is compassionate and kind and not undermining. It doesn't have to be anything too complicated, and the easiest way is just to think of how you would comfort a child. Maybe your own child, maybe a child that you know, or just maybe an adult that is very, very scared. What words would you say to them? Those are the words that you're going to say to your inner critic. So it may sound like something like this. I do understand that you're feeling very anxious about this speech, and your reasons are valid. And I hear you. And let's take it one step at a time. We don't have to do it all at once. We don't have to figure out everything about this speech right at this moment. I understand that you feel unprepared. let's look at how we can prepare. Let's look at what we can do and what support that we have around us. Let's look at what the networks are that can help us. There are many great people in our company that might be able to help us run through the speech. So what we're basically doing is just putting the inner critic at ease. Now, I'm using this term inner critic as if it is a separate entity, but essentially what we're doing is talking to ourselves, and it's a part of ourselves that is nervous and fearful. So I want you to try that. I want you to try addressing the inner critic as if you're addressing a small child with compassion. And then we will learn later how to turn that inner critic into an inner comforter who says things like, you can do this. You're going to be excellent in this speech. And this positive voice is what people who are confident about speaking in public hear before they go on stage. Transforming the inner critic into the inner comforter takes time, but this is the first step. Okay, many thanks. Please like this video and subscribe to it if you find these videos useful. Stay tuned for more tips and look out for my online course coming soon. Thank you.